Nashville is alive with music, sure, but creativity also thrives in our art, marketing, technology, food, and in every corner of our community. On Creative Assembly's The Spark podcast, our mission is to amplify Nashville's diverse creative voices, foster growth through shared journeys, and inspire a city that thrives on collaboration. Each episode will take a deep dive into the lives and passions of Nashville's most innovative minds. We'll explore their creative processes, the challenges they face, and power of collaboration, along with so much more. Welcome to the Spark Podcast, brought to you by Snapshot, a digital agency on a mission to serve with heart, execute with excellence, and build something bigger together. And now, here's the Spark.
Hey, thanks for joining us today for the Spark Podcast, brought to you by Creative Assembly. I am super excited about today's episode. We have someone who I just think the world of. He's from Denver, Colorado. He leads Build a Better Agency podcast, which is the #1 agency podcast in the world today. He's also the CEO of Agency Management Institute, and he runs the Build a Better Agency Summit along with a lot of other things. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest today, Drew McClellan. Drew, thanks so much for being on the show today. Thanks for being a part of Creative Assembly and the Spark Podcast. We're excited to help do the same thing that you do out in Denver and across the United States with all of the people that are associated with you, is just, break down the barriers of competition and really lift up the agency world. And, I've been an avid listener for quite a few years of your podcast, and just, man, it's an honor to have you here today.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, hey, just along with that, just maybe if I missed anything or if you want to add anything to your background for the audience.
So I guess my background is I've worked in advertising and agencies my whole life. So I started while I was still in college. One of my professors, I'm an adjunct professor, invited me to do some freelance work for Gray Advertising in the Twin Cities. I went to Y&R, worked in several agencies, started my own back in 1995, so that was a while ago. And along the way, when I started my own agency, I very quickly realized that I had no idea what I was doing. Like, being an agency employee and running the business of an agency are very different things. I don't care how good you are at the client-facing stuff. And so I found an organization that actually was the precursor to Agency Management Institute, and became a member. So they had these kind of like a Vistage group or an EO group, but a peer group of where you would hang out with other agency owners and learn from them. And several years in, it completely changed the way I ran my business. And then several years in, the gentleman that had started that business was already in his 70s and wanted to retire. And he came to me and said, "Drew, I think you're the guy." And I was at a point in my agency. I was a single dad. I'd been a single dad for many years. My one daughter was getting ready to go to college. And I knew that I needed something to dig my teeth into that would be sort of fresh and new and challenging. And so I'd looked at teaching at the college level and all of that, because at the end of the day, what I love to do is teach. So anyway, when this opportunity came up, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting that I would buy the business that taught me how to run my business.
Wow.
And so long story short, I bought his business, which at that time was 2 peer groups and a workshop. That was all of it. So it was very small, and I thought I could manage it on the side with my agency, which I did for a little bit. And then it just kept growing to be what AMI is today, which is this worldwide, this global resource for independently owned agencies around the idea of how do you actually run the business of your business. So our assumption is most agency owners are accidental business owners. They didn't necessarily intend to run a business. They were agency folks, and somehow they ended up hanging up a shingle, and next thing they know, they have 10 employees, and they're like, uh-oh, now what? And so they need some support, and that's where we jump in.
Yeah, well, the community you've built is just so collaboratively. I attended last year for the very first time the Build a Better Agency Summit out in Denver, and man, the people that I ran into, the agency owners out there, that if I had a question, they were like, "Hey, I can send that to you," or "Hey, why don't you, after the summit, why don't you call me and let's, I'm happy to walk you through it." And I was just like shocked that people were that giving. And, you can get in the agency world and it could be very competitive. Like,
Yep, right.
man, I wouldn't share anything with you. And you have just built a network. I guess you say it too, like you don't want people in there that feel like they're either trying to sell or they're overly
covering up their answers, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of the community. It's the attitude that we jump into the business with is there's plenty of sunshine for everybody. And we are firm believers that we learn better and faster when we learn together. And that's the core belief at AMI. So whether it's the peer groups or it's the summit, so you've got 12 agency owners together versus 400 agency owners, or our workshops or the consulting, any of the things we do, it's all about how do we learn better and faster from each other. And so we expect our clients to show up as both teacher and student in everything we do. Because even if you're coming, even if you're coming to a workshop, you have experiences that you can share with the other people in the workshop on some aspect of what we're talking about or teaching, and you can help them get better. And so we just cultivate that attitude, and we attract people who are hungry for that sort of collaboration and understand the power of doing it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I knew you from the podcast.
Yep.
I knew you from the summit, and until I got out there and met you, I didn't really realize you still have an ownership stake in the agency that you started. And maybe if you don't mind, just taking the audience back to like the agency and tell me just a little bit about like what did you specialize in? What did you do? How big did you grow it to before you made this decision to take on this new endeavor?
Yeah. So we started out as a generalist agency, as many agencies do. I had a business partner at the time. We were both working at an agency, left that agency to start our own, which is how most agencies start. And then realized we were great at the client-facing stuff. We had no idea how to run the business of the agency. But we learned, we got better. I found this group that ended up being what is today AMI. And we started to specialize. So our area of specialty was we understood the banking industry, so credit unions and banks better than anyone else. And so our clients were companies that wanted to sell something to a bank or a credit union.
Okay.
So it was everything from teller drawers to white label mortgages and credit cards. So anybody who wanted the credit union or a bank as a customer was our client. And so again, that ability to really narrow the focus and understand one industry really well was the key to our success, I think, was that we were very focused. And so we didn't have to go to 8 million conferences. We knew which conferences to go to, and we didn't have to, our content didn't have to be scattered all over, the globe. It could be very focused on what our clients needed to know. And I still believe today that's the way for agencies to behave, which, as you know, is sort of the subject matter of the book that I wrote with Stephen Westner in 2020 called Sell with Authority. Same thing, which is clients want to hire someone who is an expert, not only in marketing, but in their world as well. And the more you demonstrate that expertise, the more confidence and trust they have in hiring you.
Yeah, and that book was so good. You both laid out so many great, just steps that you have to think about and take in it was almost a roadmap.
Our goal is for it to be kind of a blueprint.
Yeah.
Follow this step by step and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You will sell more than you need to sell to make your agency successful. Yeah.
Well, from my standpoint, I've, listened to your podcast for a long time, and you talk heavily about being a specialist and not a generalist.
Right.
And, I heard that so many times from people that you'd worked with out at the summit is, Drew really came in and helped us understand to become a specialist. And our agency went from, maybe 2 to 5 million to now we're doing over 20. And it's because we just have one niche and we're incredible at it. Everybody talks the same language. And I would say in our agency, we've been generalists for a long time. And you've helped me think through niching down, and we've generated a couple niches that we think we're very, very good at. And, so we're excited to see how it will help us continue to grow as an agency. But, I guess Do you ever see agencies that, I mean, what is your thought when it comes to just an agency just wanting to be a generalist? They want to stay as a generalist.
Yeah, there's one of the great things about owning the business is you get to decide.
Okay.
Right? So, but you have to understand the consequences of that decision. So I am not going to drive by 10 general practitioners' offices to get a flu shot to get to the 11th general practitioner. But I'm going to fly to Mayo Clinic if I have a brain tumor. So the difference if you're going to be a generalist is you have to understand there's a geographical boundary by which you are probably sort of going to be confined, right? Mm-hmm. So they have to know you, and they have to see your work, and they have to understand what you do to hire a generalist. They're not going to seek you out because you know marketing, because every agency knows marketing. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing wrong with wanting to say, you know what, I love my local community. I want to serve my local market. I want to go to the Rotary meetings, the chamber meetings. I want to be a mover and a shaker in my community and influence the for-profits and not-profits in my community. There's nothing wrong with that. You just have to understand the boundary of it. Mm-hmm. But if you are, a specialist in, rural credit unions, you literally can have clients from end to end of the country you're in, whatever country that is, and they don't really care where you live because they care about your expertise. Mm-hmm. And so it's really about how do you consciously decide what kind of an agency you want to build. And, when you think about it, if you're a generalist, you don't have as many options in terms of who wants to buy that agency someday. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to be an employee, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody local. But if you are, again, that specialist that is, our agency only serves credit unions of this size and these criteria, then somebody else might be like, you know what? I want that business. I want that nationwide exposure. So lots of choices. And I'm all for agency owners running the business that they want to run. You just have to know what the boundaries are.
Mm-hmm. That's just so powerful. And even like setting yourself up for sale. And I know you've worked with many agencies to get them through that process, and we'll talk about that later. But, when you made a mind shift of I'm going to go out, you always serve first is your mentality is let me serve first and things will ultimately come back into me. But I want to help people. And I think, that's been my philosophy of even starting the podcast or us putting together the Creative Assembly event that we do here in Nashville. You've just done it on a worldwide scale. And I guess why have you ever looked back or have people ever talked to you and said, Drew, why do you do that? You're helping your competition out.
Yeah. I suspect, if I think about it, it sort of goes back to how I was raised. I was raised to be helpful and kind, and that's always served me very well. I have always been well rewarded, if you will, for being somebody who gives first. I believe you always get back more than what you give. Mm-hmm. And the more you give, not with the intention of knowing you're going to get something back. And that's, I think, a really key is that you just give to give with no expectation, no strings. And then, as you said, a subset of who you give to will give back to you. And that's more than what you need. It's plenty. And honestly, I think it also comes from that teacher mindset. So my mom was a grade school teacher. I come from a long line of teachers, and I love to teach. My version of helping is teaching. And so it's hard to teach and not share relevant, good information. Otherwise, why would anyone come to your class, right? So whether it's the podcast or a workshop or the summit or anything we do, my whole goal is to teach somebody something they didn't know. And sometimes teaching means reminding them of something they know, but they're not doing, or they are still doing that they should stop doing. And so when I come at it from a teacher's heart, it's all about giving without expectation of reciprocity.
Yeah. And that's amazing. You brought up about, building the agency that you really want it to be. And you're the owner, you get to make the decisions. And I love that. I guess with that, what are some of the things that you see with some of the most successful agencies? Like, are there common traits that you see that, really help agencies become super successful versus just like, hey, they're a good agency?
I think it depends on how we define success. And so actually I would say that's the first thing you have to do as an agency owner is your definition of success. So for some agency owners, success is 150 people. For other people, it's a ridiculous level of profit. For other people, it's world impact or community impact. And for most agency owners, it's a mix of several things.
Yeah.
But you can't build it until you know where you want it to take you. So I think you start with, why am I doing this? And at the end of the day, when I look back on my career, here's what I want people to think and know about my professional life and the business that I built. And there's nothing wrong with some of that being monetary. I want to build something I can sell someday. I want to build something that allows me to provide for my family in a significant way. I want to build generational wealth. We're all about helping agency owners not only build wealth, but build generational wealth, which you absolutely can do. But once you've defined success, then it's about, all right, now what are the elements in a business that has that level of success? So it might be that we have employees in 3 or 4 time zones. It might be that everybody is local. It might be that we are scattered remotely. It might be that we all work in an office together, like we want to physically be in the same office together. It might be that we want to specialize in something. So in general, what I would say is a successful agency knows what they want to do and knows how to measure it. So what we measure matters, right? So I'm measuring the right things to get me to where I want to go. I am clear in communicating where I want to go and why I want to go there. So what is the purpose behind the direction we're headed? What is my vision for this? Why does this matter? We know employees want to work at a company where there is a bigger picture. Like it's not just about making money for the boss, but why is this company here and what is the market's going to leave? And then I think it's about really understanding what kinds of customers or clients can you knock it out of the park for and delight? Who can you be their hero over and over and over again? And then building a business around that. Like how do I really serve those people in a way that they can't help but tell other people about us? And they can't help rave about our work. And they want to work with us for 5 years or 10 years. The average client stays with an agency 2 or 3 years. Well, you and I both know you don't make a lot of money the first year because you're ramping up. Yeah. So that means you get 1 or 2 years of profit and then they go away. Well, if you double that and they stay 6 or 10, that's a much healthier business model. And I think that that's about matchmaking. Like, are we the right fit for this client? There is no bad client, but there are plenty of bad clients for us, right? And we've all had that client, right? And usually when I say that, everybody gets a client in their head like, oh, yeah, I know who that was. So I think it's really about clarity of purpose and vision and then measuring that and measuring the goal to that. And then I think it's also understanding the KPIs that are unique to the agency. So we teach a lot of workshops that have a lot of KPIs that are specific to agencies, the whole 55, 25, 20. Yeah. So how you think about your adjusted gross income and how that money should be spent. That's not taught in an accounting class. That's not taught in a marketing class. It's very specific information to us. And once you know kind of the black and whites of the business, if you run the business by the black and whites, you kind of can't help but be successful.
Yeah, there's so few agency owners that actually know those metrics that I've talked to. And, I didn't know the metrics. And I think that's another thing. We've been in business now. This is our 15th year. And many of the years, we plowed all the profits back into the company to help us grow.
Right.
And the growth was the top line revenue. And, one thing that I've really taken from a lot of your teachings has just been, that, hey, it is not bad to make a profit. Like, you should make a lot of profit because you took the risk as an agency owner. And, I think a lot of agency owners, they grow that vanity metric. And another metric that I learned from you was just the AGI, agency gross income, right? And I don't know, did you create that or was that out there?
No, it was out there, but the whole point of it is, you've got your gross billings, which is that vanity number you're talking about, which is meaningless because you can have 2 agencies that have that same number. One's a PR shop and one's a media shop. The PR shop is going to keep 90% of that money, and the media shop is going to keep 20% if they're lucky. What matters is gross billings minus cost of goods is adjusted gross income, or AGI. That's the money the agency owner gets to use to run the business. So they're going to spend that on loaded salaries, so salaries and benefits. They're going to spend that on overhead and profit. And one point that I think a lot of agency owners do not understand is when you starve yourself of profit, what you're doing is you're diminishing the value of your business. Because ultimately, someone's going to look at your books and go, why would I buy this? It's been 2% profitable for the last 5 years. Why would I invest in that? I can get better return on a CD than I can get from that with no risk. So it's really about, again, sort of starting with the end in mind and then running the business like a profitable business. And it's not just so we get rich as agency owners. It's so we can reward our people. It's so we can invest in new technology, so we can keep training our people, sending them to learning opportunities and things like that. We can reward them as well. We can do things in our community. So it's not greedy to want to run a profitable business. That's the whole point of having a business.
Yeah.
Even in the growth years.
Totally. And Drew, I really appreciate you giving to this community. And I guess I would say to the audience, if you have any questions and you want to drop them in the comments section, like we're happy to get Drew to answer them for you. If there's something for me, I'm happy to answer it. The other thing is the dashboard that we just talked about, with all these metrics. Yeah. I know we've followed your lead and we created something and then we refined it together. And I really feel as though we have something that most every agency would love to see. And I just want to let the audience know that we're going to drop that in the comments and it's free to you all. Just come and download it. If it helps you build a better agency, then it's a win for everybody. So
yeah, for sure.
And it all came from just a lot of your advice and work. So really appreciate that and appreciate the listeners for making some comments. I guess, you also talk a lot about, creating an agency to design a life of freedom, and,
right.
Maybe just talk about that as, the agency can be really crazy, from time to time. There's high highs and there's low lows sometimes as an agency owner, and maybe just what you're seeing in designing an agency with a life of freedom around it.
I think when you think about the risk you take by starting any business, it's pretty significant. It's your house on the line. It's, your name on the line of credit. It's all of that. And so the only reason to take that risk is because there's greater rewards. And I think we often think of reward meaning more money. And don't get me wrong, I think that's great. But I think the reward we often sort of undervalue is the freedom to create a life that we want. So I'll give you a great example. So back in my agency days, again, I was a single dad. And so every day after school, I had to pick up my daughter. Well, if I worked for a company, any other company, I would not have been allowed to leave at 3:00 every day to pick my daughter up and take her home and get her a snack and start the homework run and all of that. Yeah. But as an agency owner, I could say to my team, you know what, don't schedule me in anything after 2:30 because, I got to pick Kelsey up. And I literally, I started the business when she was 2 years old. So think about her entire school life until she could drive. I was picking her up after school every day. And that's a privilege that I got to do as a dad that I would have never had an employer let me do. Now, I worked what I called the second shift. So either when she was working on homework or when she went to bed, I was doing a few more hours of work. So I was rearranging time, not giving up time. So I think that's number one. Number two, I think there are a lot of things financially agency owners can do. And you were at the Money Matters workshop, and we talked about a lot of those from a tax advantage point of view. There's a lot of things you can do that benefit you and your family personally, that are also advantageous from a tax point of view, that are a legal, deduction on your taxes. So there are ways to maximize the ownership. That's another thing. I think, with AMI, one of my goals, I'm a big Disney guy. So one of my goals was I wanted to spend at least a month a year on Disney property. And so I figured out a way to hold workshops and do other things on Disney property that would let me fulfill that dream. Well, again, if I'm somebody's employee and I said to them, hey, you know what, I just want to work for a month a year from Walt Disney World, they would have been like, I don't think so, Drew. But I could give myself that gift because I own the joint. And so I just think there's a lot of ways to think about the freedoms. I'll give you one more example, and then I know we need to move on. But so I have in the last 10 years lost both of my parents. And one of the things that I wanted to do, it occurred to me when I lost my mom, who I lost first, that I didn't ever want people to forget about her. Like long after I'm gone, I wanted people to know her name and what she was about. So I was able to create a scholarship. So again, my mom was a teacher. So I went to a teaching college. I created a scholarship in her name that the students were required to read about my mom and then write an essay of how they would apply her philosophy of teaching in their classroom to win this scholarship. I was able to do all of that and fund the scholarship through my business as a deduction.
Yeah.
Right? So again, and I did the same thing for my dad, but for veterinarian students. That's a privilege of owning the business, right? That I could leave that lasting impact, which now affects 2 college students every year, but more importantly for me, keeps the memory of my parents alive. That's the kind of create a life that I think we don't often think about when we think about the benefits of owning an agency.
Yeah, and being able to create that legacy.
Right.
I know you're probably hoping down the road, long time from now, that your daughter creates the same thing for you. And
yeah, we'll see. Right.
So it's but that's incredible that you did that. And I guess with just thinking back on that, like, you're one of the most sought after like agency consultants out there. And I don't know how you keep up with everything you do, but I know, you're in Denver, you got your finger on the pulse of the Denver, creative community, but you also have it around the world because you get to see everything. I guess what's something that you could speak to the Nashville creative community of what really makes a thriving creative community?
One of the things that I love the most about the AMI community that I think any local community can emulate is when agency owners and leaders celebrate each other's good work, when they see it and they celebrate it and they encourage each other to do better work. I think that just raises everybody's efforts, right?
Yeah.
And I think the less sort of competitive we are and the more we honestly and genuinely share what's going on in our world, the more deep and meaningful conversations you can have with each other, which allows you, from the summit, when you're sitting around with a bunch of other agency owners and somebody says, man, I am banging my head against a brick wall with new business. And here's what we've done, and here's what we've done, and here's what we've done. And they're vulnerable enough to admit that, I think business people have a tendency to sort of inflate how everything's great. We're making more money than, we can spend, blah, blah, blah. But when you're really vulnerable and you share that you're having a struggle and someone next to you goes, we had that same problem last year. And let me tell you 3 things we did that got us out of that slump. Like A, now you're better because somebody gave you an arm up. B, the person who's helping you feels better because they were being helpful, and it's sort of a karma thing, right? Like if I'm helpful to you, then someday you'll be helpful to me.
Yeah.
And I think owning an agency can be really lonely. Like, especially in a local community, you feel like you can't really talk about the business because they're all your competitors. Well, the reality is every agency on the planet is now our competitor.
Yeah.
And it's probably not just the Nashville agencies around you that are your competitor. Every agency is your competitor. So your job is to be really great at what you do and to specialize in what you do, and then to also lift the profession up by being supportive of each other.
Yeah. Wow. That is good. And, just a quick story. I reached out to one of the big agency owners here in town a few years back, and I didn't even really think that he would respond. And so, he responded immediately and was like, man, I'd love to go meet you and maybe even see your agency if you're willing. And so we came over. We had some lunch in our conference room and showed him around. And, one thing he mentioned that has always stuck to me, and it's really why, I started doing this with the Creative Assembly, the gathering that we do, is just, he said, Mark, the one thing that holds Nashville back is just the competitive nature of the agencies. And I love what you said about, how do you celebrate each other's work? Because, man, there is some great work that comes out of shops here. Big shops, small shops, they're all doing great work. I mean, the amount of big clients that smaller agencies work with here in town is just very impressive. But, like, how do you lower down that competitive nature, and how do you lift up the whole creative community is really my biggest takeaway from that and what you just said. So I hope everybody's listening to that.
You know, the average client works with 3 to 5 agencies.
Okay.
And so part of it is understanding that you're probably not going to be in the sandbox all by yourself. And if you want bigger clients, that's even more true. So if you have a smaller local client base, maybe you are their only agency. But imagine if you're a full-service marketing agency, but you don't do PR, or you don't do SEO, or you don't do whatever. If your attitude, and this kind of gets back to what we started the conversation with, if your attitude is, my job is to help my client accomplish their goals. And boy, their goals would be accomplished better if they had PR, they had SEO. We don't do it. But if I could partner with someone and I can bring them, I trust them enough to bring them in, and we could work together, we both get to change the trajectory of that client's business. And isn't that why we're in the business? And so when you look at it from a selfless point of view of how do I actually help my client accomplish their goals, both what I can do and what other people I know can do. And if you're the one that brings everybody to the party, you kind of get credit for all of that. And you help your client, and you're helping another agency who probably is going to need what you do someday with one of their clients. It becomes very reciprocal when we sort of lower our guard and say, you know what, you're not, while in some ways you are my competitor, you are also my collaborator. And if I can see you as my collaborator, together we can do more than either of us can do individually. And I'm willing to take that risk. But it does take the first agency to be willing to sort of lower the wall and take the risk and trust someone to bring them into what, without a doubt, is risky, which is, I don't want to screw up this client relationship.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose this client. I don't want you to steal this client. So it is a vulnerable place. But if you're willing to be vulnerable first and that goes well, there's a lot of opportunity for you and the other agencies in your community to do bigger, better things.
Yeah, we have definitely seen that, Drew, quite a bit. And we've worked with other agency partners that, you know, once the floodgate opens, you know, the opportunities back and forth, just it's unbelievable how not only are we bringing opportunities to them and getting them involved with our clients, but they're also bringing us in on things. And it's just... it is a great, a great opportunity for agencies to grow by using other partners out there. And so,
well, and the catch is, let's say you and I are agency owners, and I bring you in, and I give you an opportunity to earn some great AGI, and your clients are not a good fit for us. I have to be okay with the fact that it's not even Steven. I can't keep score.
Yeah.
As long as you're serving our clients well and we're partnering well together, that has to be enough. Eventually, odds are you will reciprocate, but it can't be I think where it goes south is when people keep track. And it's like, okay, well, I gave you $100. You only gave me $23. So we have to square this up, as opposed to you're doing me a favor by benefiting my client. I'm doing you a favor by benefiting your client. The money will work itself out. And as long as everybody's doing it profitably, we're good.
Yeah. And I know we're going to go there towards the end. Like, I know the amount of research that you all do is just extraordinary. And, you know, one thing I did pick up at the last Build a Better Agency Summit was just that, you see big brands bringing a collection of agencies together that are the very best in their niches. But one thing you've seen is that there's got to be one throat to choke, one person that runs point on the account that actually acts as the lead with all the other agencies. And those agencies have to let down their egos and know that, hey, I'm a part of this because this other agency is going to lead the charge because maybe they were the most trusted with that client.
Or they own the relationship first. So you're right. For 15 years, we've done a piece of research, proprietary research called Agency Edge. And so every year, we sort of pick a very focused topic that we want to ask clients of agencies. So, for example, last year was, hey, clients, when, how, and why do you give your current agency more money? right? Okay. This year it's all about AI. But what we know is we've seen the trend. So 10 years ago, clients had 5 agencies and they managed all of those relationships independently. Probably about 7 years ago, clients went, this is horrible. Like I'm spending my whole time managing these agencies. So I'm going to pick a lead agency. And ideally, and this is one of the benefits of like an AMI community or a Nashville community, if my lead agency knows a bunch of other agencies that they already trust and have worked with, I'm going to let them help me assemble the team of agencies I need, and they're going to take the lead. So there's great power in already having collaborative relationships with other agencies that you can bring to your client that you already have confidence in. You've already worked out the billing stuff and all the minutia, and you know they're going to show up in the room as super smart and super collaborative. Because the other thing clients told us is when I bring 4 or 5 agencies into the sandbox, the first agency that gets kicked out is the one that's kicking sand at the other agencies, like trying to throw them under the bus or trying to steal their parts of the work. Clients don't want to referee agencies, bickering over work. So the more collaborative and cooperative the agencies are, the more they come together with their talents and work as a team, the happier the client is, the more they spend with everybody, and the benefit is, multifold for the agencies.
Yeah. Well, and I know that report comes out every year and it's a different topic. For this year's report, is there a place that the audience could go and learn about this beyond just coming to the Build a Better Agency Summit?
Yep. So we will unveil the research data at the summit.
Okay.
And then we will have an executive summary that does an overview of the research online probably a couple weeks after. So the summit is May 19th for members and 20th and 21st is the full conference. So by mid-June, that report will be on the website, and we'll be doing a webinar. So we do that research in partnership with a research firm called Audience Audit.
Okay.
So the woman who owns Audience Audit, Susan Beyer, and I will do a webinar. It's usually 90 minutes where we'll literally walk everybody through every single question and the answer and what we think it means for agencies. So a couple ways people can sort of make sure that they get that. So if they put an email address in the comments, we'll add them to, we send out a newsletter every week that is very educational. It's not salesy at all. So that we'll announce when those webinars are in the newsletter. They can follow AMI or me on social media, and we'll post it there as well. And if people are following you and you want to put it on your social media, we'll make sure you get all the links and all the information so that people don't miss it.
Great. Well, I want to just take it back just for a minute on the on all of the different things that AMI does. And you mentioned the Money Matters workshop, which we came out there, and man, it was a lot of great learning from, how to price projects to like how to set up your P&L the right way to just a lot of different things when it comes to making money in your agency and creating profitability. But I would say you touched on that about the tax benefits, and it was profound. I feel like that one section for 1 hour paid for the entire trip like 5 times.
I hope so. Yeah.
And so a lot of these workshops that you do, I know creates a ton of value, and we've sent our team out there to a couple others. Maybe just tell the audience some of the other workshops that you're seeing, being beneficial.
Yeah. So Money Matters is always a perennial favorite. It's for agency owners and their sort of C-level financial folks, because it is at the agency owner level. We teach we teach 2 AE boot camps. We have an advanced AE boot camp for AEs that have been around for more than 4 or 5 years. And then we have an entry level AE boot camp for like account coordinators and more junior people in that role. We just taught a workshop for the first time called How to Grow Your Existing Clients, which was off the charts good. People were just raving about the content. I'm super excited about that. So we'll teach it again. We partner with an agency search firm called Mercer Island Group, and they teach a couple workshops. My favorite that they teach is called Sell with Strategic Insights. And most agency owners are very strategic. And so they are also the bottleneck in their agency because everybody else doesn't know how to come up with the big strategies. And so in a new business pitch or when you're trying to win a client, everybody turns to the owner and says, okay, what's the big idea? Well, Mercer Island Group came to us and said, boy, we're watching these agencies pitch and they're not good at this. We need to teach them how to do this. So they have a whole methodology where anybody from an account coordinator to an agency owner can learn the process and be more strategic. So I love that workshop because at the end of the day, the work we do, the stuff we make is getting commoditized. Our ideas and strategies will never be commoditized. So we need to be more strategic for our clients. And so I love that workshop. And we teach a handful of other ones, and they're all on the website. And our goal is just to constantly have education. We also do 2 webinars a month that are absolutely free. So it's the first Tuesday and the third Tuesday of every month at 11 o'clock Mountain. So we're constantly trying between the podcasts and the webinars and the workshops and the summit. Again, at my heart, I'm a teacher, so I'm always looking for new ways to teach. We produce a video every week. I produce a video every week that's maybe a 3 or 4 minute, just a tip for agency owners and leaders. That's got a YouTube channel you can subscribe to. So a lot of what we do is out in the wild. It's for free, and we do that on purpose. We want to give away a lot of what we know and be as helpful as we can be. And then if you want to come to a workshop or the summit or do something that costs money, great, we're happy to have you, but it's also okay if you never need that.
Yeah, Drew, I love that about you, and you're just servant heart of helping people, and it's it's very obvious. We'll also drop a link to your book, Sell with Authority, which it's an incredible book for agency owners that are looking to increase their revenues and all the things that it takes to do that. So we'll drop that in the show notes as well.
Great.
Is there anything that maybe I haven't asked you or maybe you think would be beneficial to the Nashville creative community audience?
I think one of the biggest mistakes agency owners make is that they're so busy doing somebody else's job that they don't do their job. And so there are some roles inside an agency that only the owner can do. And if you're busy being an account service person or a creative director or a fill in the blank, then what that means is no one's doing the owner's job. And when you talk about sort of like having a big burst of growth and then sliding backwards and kind of that seesaw that some agencies experience, often when we come in to do some consulting or an audit, it's because there isn't that consistent behavior from the agency owner of doing the work that only they can do. And when that work is neglected, the agency just sort of, floats based on the whim of the market and clients, and it's not really in your control. And so I think one of the things I would say to agency leaders is everybody's got to be in the right lane and doing their job. That's super important. The other thing I think is that we do not have the luxury of knowing only what we know today, tomorrow. We are in an industry, we are expected by our clients to be leading the way. And the only way to lead the way is to keep learning. And so any agency that has not created a culture of continual lifelong learning is going to find themselves irrelevant pretty quickly. And I would have said that 10 years ago, and today it's multifold true. I mean, just think about the way we work today that we hadn't even conceived of a decade ago. And now it just is happening faster and faster and faster. And so you can either feel a victim of that, or you can say, you know what, that's a horse I can harness and ride. Like, trends and technology are giving us new opportunities to serve clients, and it's my job to learn that stuff and teach it to our clients. And I'll give you a little taste of the research that we're going to come out with. So we're just coming out of the field with the Agency Edge Research for 25, and it's all about AI. It's asking clients, how are they using AI? How do they want us to use it? How do they feel about the level of expertise we have? And the cheat sheet answer is they're a little disappointed that we're not further along. They expect us to be teaching them how to use AI better. And so if we don't do it, another agency will.
Yeah, man, that is just so incredible. You're right. And the learning just happens so quickly today. It's like, the amount of stuff you have to keep up with in this world. So, Drew, I just want to say thank you for being a part of the show, and appreciate you being in Nashville and being willing to come over here and talk to me and give back to the Nashville creative community like you have today. If, anybody out there, please follow Drew at the Build a Better Agency podcast. It's the way I first got introduced. And, I got introduced through another local PR firm here. And the lady, she was like, hey, do you ever follow this Build a Better Agency podcast? You ought to listen to it. And that's how I started listening to your podcast.
Well, I owe her flowers.
Yeah. Well, I would just say to the listeners that it's a great resource, and appreciate you putting it on. And then, go to Agency Management Institute and check out Drew and everything he and his team are working on. And then, the book as well. We'll put all that in the notes. But Drew, thanks again for being a part of the show. Really appreciate it. And thank you. Thanks for tuning in today to the Spark Podcast by Creative Assembly. We appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us today, and look forward to you tuning in for our next episode. Thank you.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Spark from Creative Assembly. Thanks for spending time with us and exploring the minds shaping Nashville's creative future. If you're walking away more inspired, connected, or energized, that's exactly the point. A big thank you to our sponsor, Snapshot, and the incredible team behind the scenes who make this show possible. Your support fuels every conversation and keeps collaboration alive. So if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and keep that spark.